Hello and welcome to the Internet of Things Made Simple. I'm Larry Bohumer. This is episode 4, and we thank you for joining us. Today we're going to be covering as our main topic the top 10 ways that IoT will change your life, including how it will change things at home, on your drive to work, in the office, and just about every other aspect of your life. Before we get into that, I wanted to cover a couple of things. Yes, it's time for Larry's shameless plug of his book again. My book, The Internet of Things Made Simple, is available for free as a download on iTunes for the month of November and December. Or if you're into holding an actual physical book, you can buy it from Amazon. Before we get started on the top 10 ways for IoT and how it's going to change your life, we're going to open with, will 5G dominate the smart home? Today, most smart home devices either use Wi-Fi, perhaps Bluetooth if it's connecting to your smartphone, or they might use some kind of proprietary radio technology, such as Zigbee. A question has come up though, will 5G actually take over this market? The idea of using cellular for most of your devices around the house today makes very little sense. Why would you pay for a monthly bill for devices that really never leave your house? 5G is going to change that a little bit. It's going to offer connectivity rates that are so much lower than what we have today, it might actually make sense to see some devices in the smart home move towards 5G, especially those that are prone to theft. So I don't see your furnace, for instance, moving towards 5G, but perhaps some other devices that could be stolen might do it. It's an interesting question, actually. I wonder if we're actually going to see it happen anytime soon, and I wonder if the carriers are going to push 5G towards that. Do remember from a previous podcast, we mentioned something called massive IoT, and that's a term that's become new to the industry because 5G has allowed for many more devices, up to 1 million in a square mile, to all gain connectivity to the network without degrading connectivity for everybody else. So this is kind of interesting. The last area I could definitely see it in are those vital security items. Many companies are worried about Wi-Fi, and it's not because Wi-Fi is inherently insecure. It's because you're relying on people to actually turn on the security for Wi-Fi. And if it's a highly secure device, you might not want to take that chance. When we come back from a 5-second break, we're going to go over the top 10 ways that IoT is changing your life. Back in 5 seconds. Okay, so welcome back. Unlike The Late Show with David Letterman, I don't have a band playing to help me do these top 10 lists. And in fact, because it's not that climactic, I'm actually not even going to start from number 10. I'm just going to start from number 1. The first way that IoT is going to change your life is how it's going to improve your game. And in this case, I'm talking about sports or recreation. Whether you're a golfer, a tennis player, a runner, a swimmer, or pretty much any other sport, IoT definitely has the chops to make you better. The first is that the improved data can help to make sure that you're actually in the ideal shape to perform at your best. So things like, are you getting enough sleep? Are you resting and getting enough relaxing moments? And are you actually eating properly? Can all be helped by IoT solutions. The second area is how it actually helps your technique. So imagine the case of a tennis player. They may have problems with their backhand. Sensors on board the racket can actually tell what's going on. Are you swinging too hard? Or not hard enough? Do you have the wrong grip, the wrong angle, or any other way you may have some issues? This information can be sent to you and to your coach to be able to improve your performance. The third area has to do with your equipment, and that's making sure that they're in the proper shape. So if you take a bicycle, for instance, there's a lot of moving parts to a bike, and if things aren't working properly in the gears or brakes, that definitely would hurt the performance, especially for an elite athlete. So IoT helps make sure that these devices are maintained properly and that they're being used and stored in the right way. The second overall area is how it reduces your energy bill. And here we're talking more about your home, not so much about your car. That's in a different area. The first thing it will do for your home is to let you know when things aren't right. So imagine your teenager has left a window open upstairs during the dead of winter. You can get an alarm that says something is not right, heat's escaping out of a certain area, and that will allow you to actually rectify the problem. The second is it will let you know if things are working properly. So take your air conditioning unit, for instance. Imagine you live in Las Vegas where that device gets used a lot. If your AC is not running in optimal condition, it definitely will use more electricity than it would normally. And the same goes for other appliances, your fridge, your stove, and everything else. IoT solutions let you know when things aren't working properly, and this will definitely reduce your energy bill. The third thing is to reduce your energy use when no one's at home to enjoy it. So if you take, for instance, that same AC unit, devices like Nest will start to recognize the patterns of your life and will realize that at 9 o'clock in the morning, no one's home. Why am I cooling the house to the same level of temperature? And this will definitely help to reduce your energy use. The third overall area is how it makes your home safer. We're going to talk about how it makes you safer in a bit. One, it can set alarms on key items. So this could be things like how it alerts you if there's somebody in your backyard when it actually knows you should be at work, things like that. The second is along the same lines, and that's unusual activity. So if it knows that your child normally leaves at a certain time, and now the garage door is opened up, it can definitely recognize this activity. The final area is how it helps to keep you safe from things like carbon monoxide. And one great thing that a Nest device does, for instance, is that if it recognizes your carbon monoxide level is too high in your home, it will actually deactivate your furnace, which is the likely cause of that spike in carbon monoxide level. So that's a very good way to keep you safe. The next point is how it reduces your commute to work. And for many people, this is IoT's biggest lifesaver. The first thing it will do is actually alert you to issues such as a road closure or any other kind of issue along your way to work. Cities are putting in these sensor systems to actually push out information to people. Along the same lines is the second point, and that's monitoring key infrastructure. Many parts of North America have some pretty old infrastructure, especially things like bridges and water mains. By monitoring these things, the city can actually prevent major delays in your commute. So if a bridge were to drop chunks of concrete, in addition for being dangerous down below, it would also cause potential long delays for commuters. And the same goes for a water main burst that would cause a sinkhole in the road. So by monitoring these things, the city can actually improve everyone's commute. The last thing is where artificial intelligence comes in, because all this data that a city could actually get is only great if they're able to actually make changes to help your commute. So if you take, for instance, a sporting event, if you live near a major stadium for an NFL game, for instance, the AI solution can recognize the patterns that this game would cause and actually do things like change the lighting patterns for the street lights, and perhaps it can even change the direction of those optional lanes on many roads. The last thing it might even do is change the on-ramp schedule. So many highways in parts of the world will actually keep you on the on-ramp for 3, 5, 10 seconds. The idea being that if you can slow down people getting onto the highway, you can reduce the congestion. By keeping people a few more seconds during extreme busy times, that will help to keep traffic flowing better for everybody. Number 5 is to make it easier to fly. And many of us who fly are just grateful for that because it's not a very good experience, even if you're flying first class, between check-ins and wait times and delays. It's just something you want to try to minimize the impact of. One way you'll do that is to reduce the downtime of planes and other parts. And that's by improving the maintenance. So these vehicles have many moving parts to them. Sensors will actually let them know when things aren't working properly. But the other thing it does, especially on the sensor side, is it improves weather forecasting. So this way planes can know to avoid certain areas, they can know to do de-icing in winter regions, and other things like that. The next way is kind of interesting. It might even be kind of creepy to some people, and that's to offer personalized service. We've all seen different places as a regular where they know what you want. You walk in there, they just have your drink ready, or they know what you're going to order. And that's something many of us enjoy. Airlines are now going to have this information because they're going to know the last time you were on board, you liked the air vent to be open more. So once you sit down, it will actually know to open the air vent, for instance. It will know the kind of meals you wanted. It will even know the kind of movies you have watched to know what to recommend. So yes, it's a bit creepy, but it will actually improve service. The last thing it will do is improve flow through the airport. And I'm not talking about the airflow here. I'm talking about things like improving the way that bags are checked, improving security, and most importantly, making sure that bags don't get lost or delayed. IoT sensors and different barcode technology helps to make all this possible. When we come back, we're going to cover the last 5. Back in 5 seconds. So we're back with number 6, and that's how it keeps your children safe. It can do it a number of ways. The first is that it alerts you when they arrive at home. And that's for the kids who are nicknamed the latchkey kids. And so you can actually see not only did they arrive home, but was anybody else with them, perhaps kids that shouldn't be. However, that's a bit of a concern for many parents because you can't actually do much. So if the kids come home and decide to play with the stove, it's great that you know they were home, but you can't actually have any control. At least you didn't before. New technology is coming out that allows the parents to control devices. So for instance, the stove won't turn on before a certain time. And these things help to keep the kids even more safe. However, there is obviously a concern of your kids going to and from school. And unfortunately, in many parts of the world, there's concerns even at school for things like school shootings. This is where technology, whether it be in the form of an RFID chip for smaller children, perhaps it's a smartphone-based technology for the older child, all these different ways allow people to keep track of their children while they're away from the home. The last one is something that I, knock on wood, don't have to deal with, and that's allergy alerts. Many children today have issues for everything from dairy to peanuts and other nuts, and many more different allergy options. What you're starting to see now are some sample tests that are able to be done very quickly using smartphones. You're starting to see things like smart utensils. This helps to make sure that your child is not going to be affected by inadvertently eating something they're allergic to. The 7th one we're going to look at also has to do with your child, but this is how it improves their overall education. The first thing has to do with the actual environment at school, and all of us have a particular environment that we work best in. So some people like loud music in the background, other ones like dead silence, other ones like blazing amounts of light, and other ones work in the dark. While we can't do everything to make sure that your child has the exact environment they need, what we can do is make sure that it's not too cold, not too hot. There's not too much pollen in the air. And perhaps if it's an older school, they're not being affected by some things like lead and other pollutants. IoT solutions allow the schools to actually monitor these things. And on top of providing a better environment, it actually allows them to reduce cost for things like heating and cooling as well. The second area has to do with how they actually learn, and that's the use of things like ebooks. No more carrying around 100 pounds, or so it felt, of textbooks to and from school. Many schools are moving towards iPads and Google tablets and other devices to allow kids to not only not have to carry these things, but to benefit from videos, from interactive technology, even using the gyroscope on board many of these devices to teach better in subjects like science. The last area also has to do with the learning, and this is more when it comes to things like smart boards, and that would fall into the area of e-learning. Smart boards allow the teacher not just to write notes, but also to watch videos and have interactivity. My son's school actually interacts with a school over in mainland China, which is kind of interesting, and it's definitely a new way to learn. Along the same lines, this same interactivity can work for kids who, for whatever reason, are unable to attend school, whether it be for problems like bullying or just physical ailments, or perhaps they live too far away from a school to actually attend. The next main category is how it improves your performance at work. Like the schools, it can help to provide a better environment. Many people are actually finding that smart technologies are allowing them to optimize the noise level by using products like white noise that will automatically adjust. Perhaps they can have individual settings for blinds and many other things. It may sound like a luxury, but many of these solutions offer a very good return on investment for the business. The second area is how it improves productivity, and I'm going to focus on office life here, which I definitely don't miss, and I'm glad I don't have to deal with working from home. One is meeting rooms, and in many companies, this is a huge point of contention. Meeting rooms are booked and not used, they're double booked, there's all kinds of issues. A lot of automated solutions are coming out now that once you walk in, it will actually read your badge and automatically book the room for you. It also speeds up the invite process, which helps to streamline operations. The other thing that IoT does to improve productivity is to improve your customer-based information. So if you're a customer service person and somebody calls in, many times you have very little information as to what's going on. And even if you do have the information, you're usually not able to do anything. You have to dispatch a tech or give the customer instructions, and this is a very inefficient way to support customers. IoT solutions are allowing that to be changed in a few ways. The first is that sometimes it will actually fix the problem on the customer's device before they even call in, which is great. But if they do have to call in, the customer service rep will now be available to actually see what's going on the device in real time and be able to sometimes even reset or make basic changes. If they still can't fix the problem, at least now if they send information over to the repair person, they will at least have all the information they need, which will help to eliminate any wasted time from their day as well. The last way that IoT helps around the office is similar to how it helps around the schools, and that's to improve safety. Things like panic alarms and environmental monitors if you happen to live in an earthquake zone, and even better security will help keep you safe while at the office. The second last thing it will do is to help keep your loved ones safe. And here I'm not talking about children so much. I'm more talking about the older people in your life, whether that be your aunt, your uncle, your parents, your brother, whoever it might be. And it would also apply to those living alone who would fall under the category of special needs as well, whether that's because of a lifelong ailment, perhaps like autism, or it's for somebody that's had a traumatic event like a heart attack and is still recovering. The first thing it will do there is to help keep them in their home in the first place, and this way they won't need special care. That's through things like smart home automation, as well as solutions that will alert you when things just aren't quite right. So these solutions are non-intrusive, so it still allows the person to actually maintain some form of dignity. But you can be told that they haven't come downstairs by a certain point. You can also be told that perhaps they left the stove on for much longer than normal. Things like that. The second kind of way you can keep them safe is to be alerted for high-risk members of your family. And that's people who are prone to things like wandering, and that could be for a number of different reasons. Perhaps it's an ailment like dementia, or maybe they're taking some powerful pain medication to recover from a fall. Either way, you can be told if they wander away from where they should be. The second kind of monitoring for that is people that have had issues with, say, their heart. Apple devices and many other products can actually alert you to a spike in their heart rate, or a drop for that matter. And this will let you know not only this is happening, but their GPS location as well. The third thing it can do is to help with ongoing medical issues, and I'm going to focus on two areas here. One has to do with medication. Many visits to the hospital have to do with incorrect medication being taken, whether it's too much, too little, too close together, and whatever it might be. A lot of solutions are coming out now that not only help the person to remember to take the medication, they can also alert the family member if the medication was not taken properly. The other thing has to do with ongoing issues. So perhaps your parents are having issues to do with walking. There are devices out there that can actually periodically monitor their mobility, how stable they are, how fast they move, how fluid the motion of movement is. And it will actually allow you to see these things, and perhaps it can give you information in case you have to have that awkward conversation. The last thing it can do, and maybe the most important, is to keep you healthy. I talked about how it can monitor things like how much sleep you have and your diet to help your athletic performance. Well, let's face it, most of us aren't athletes. Sure, we might work out, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about monitoring long-term trends, like your blood pressure and like your weight, and it'll be able to allow you to see these things. And that'll help for a few reasons. One is namely that it will keep you healthy, but two, it's going to improve your doctor's visit. A lot of times people go there and they get what's called white coat hypertension. So they might not actually have a blood pressure problem, but when they get into the doctor's office, all of a sudden they get nervous and lo and behold, their BP spikes. So now the doctor has to go by what they can see, and in many times they're prescribing medication that's not needed. By being able to actually show a historical record of, say, a daily reading for the last 6 months, the doctor can get a better indication as to how you're feeling And it can also tell if perhaps new medication has caused issues that they didn't anticipate. The second way that IoT can improve your health is to actually improve your hospital visits. And sure, most of us want to avoid the hospital as much as possible. And it helps the hospital in a few ways. One, it helps make sure it's cleaner, and that sensors making sure that certain cleaning was done. It also will check on the germs in certain areas, things like that. It will also help the hospital have less downtime, and that's for key machines, for instance, like MRIs and X-rays, as well as things in the operating room. And then the last thing it will do is to actually better monitor the patient. For those who are on the fence as to whether they should be sent home or not, IoT solutions allow hospitals to actually get more monitoring information while the patient's at home, allowing them to free up beds and to lower cost. If health is an area of interest for you for IoT, just note that episode 7 is entirely dedicated to IoT and health, and that'll be coming up in a few weeks. I hope you enjoyed this episode. As always, I encourage you to visit our new webpage, theinternetofThingsmadesimple.com, and I humbly ask that you subscribe to this podcast using your favorite service. I'm Larry by Humor. Thanks for listening.